we see these characters, we know they are fictional. We don't even identify them as being humans. And one thing is that even this girl is heavily backlit from this bright sun, and you see highlights in the hair. There are no translucency of the ears. So that's the first step. We say, okay, these are just fictional characters. If some of you went to the movies in 1983, where Beowulf had its premiere, that was the first computer animated movie where all the actors were fully computer animated. And at that time, we were pretty good at animating hair, pretty good at animating eyes. So you remember when you saw the first Narnia, the hair of the lion when it stands there, and it looks really like real hair on a real lion. But the problem is there are no translucency in the ears. That's one challenge. The other one is there are no translucency in the skin in general, because if you were radiated with sunlight or artificial light here, you would have a certain glow in the human skin. You would also have another glow around the ears. So even though they're animated, when you saw that movie, it was just like wax figures moving around or dead people moving around. Not that scary though, but it didn't feel right. And you were in the film industry, they were fighting a lot with that. How can we really send the signal to people that these are not computer animated beings, this is real beings? Remember when we saw Star Wars when we were young, we saw Yoda, and even though he's heavily backlit, you see the hair is glowing, his ears are also made out of rubber. But that was somehow okay, because we all knew that Yoda was kind of a hand doll, just speaking no patience he has, or something like that. So it was actually okay. But a big thing happened in 2004 when Gollum was introduced to the stage. Those of you who saw Lord of the Rings hopefully has shared this experience with me, that Gollum was accepted as an equal player alongside Frodo and the other guys. He was actually a real character. Everybody knew he was animated. He was a guy in a black suit with a lot of white dots moving around, and then they animated Gollum on top of him. But he was actually a real character in that movie. And I never liked him. I never trusted that guy. So, but I didn't really think of him as just being animated on top of something. He was instinctively accepted by me as an actor and by many other people. One thing that did that is the translucency of his skin. He's the first computer animated figure that has translucent skin. If you go outside, you close your hands and hold it towards the sun, you know you will see red lines where your fingers meet, and you will actually be able to see that in some of the scenes down here when you have a good quality rendering, that the way the light breaks around his fingers makes him look real. Of course, the ears, but also the light around the shoulder, the way that it penetrates the skin and radiates out again, makes him look very, very human. So human, in fact, that Henrik he got an Oscar for the mathematics, a technical Oscar for the mathematics behind the creation of the skin of Gollum in 2004. So Henrik is a Dane who works at a university in the United States, and he tried to get another Oscar when he made the skin of the Na'vi in Avatar, because his task at that time was to create an alien race that the moment we saw them, felt was alive. These are not androids or robots running around. The moment we saw them, we knew this was a live species in another world. And one of the tricks that they, of course, use is to create ears in a certain size, but being translucent, so that we know that this girl is very much alive, even though she's far away in another world. So that's why I became a very happy man when I read the new EN 12464, where we for the first time talk about backlighting people. Because if we meet each other, if I'm up here presenting, it's very often I just got a spot in my head and there's no light behind me. But the new standard demands that we are making cylindrical measurements around the body of a person who's standing there or people in a meeting room, so we can make sure that we have lights from the side, from the back, and from the front. So for the first time, we are really starting to treat humans as humans instead of objects that we are lighting. So I think that we can actually enhance communication between people pretty effectively when we start just to read the new international standard, which is a big step that we finally have pushed these things into the standard. So we know it from experience, we know that this is the way we should light people. And we know that it works. So much for movies and avatars. A little more sensitive issue here is this makeup style is called 1914 makeup, and this was introduced the first time after the First World War, where there were vast overrepresentation of women and very few men coming back from the battlefields. So the women had to do something to get hold of the guys. Sometimes they still have to do something to get hold of the guys, but it's a little more equal now. So the girls who were looking like this, they had a fair chance to attract some of the soldiers who came home. And actually, the latest research that was presented by Deborah Burnett in Madrid tells us that this makeup may not look exactly the right way, but these areas here underneath the eyes, if you feel on yourself, it's very, very thin skin, and it's pretty tight flooded with blood and hemoglobin. So these are the very first parts of our body that change its color. So if you look somebody in the eye who you want to talk to or trust, you actually don't look them exactly in the eye, but your visual field has a size that covers about this area. So if we look at each other's eyes, we also look at the color of the skin just underneath the eyes. And that is actually a pretty powerful way of transferring signals. So if a girl has a slight red color underneath her eyes, when you look in her eyes, she wants to carry on the conversation. So remember that, guys. It's a very good sign when you get home tonight and your wife has a little bit of red color underneath her eyes, preferably natural, but if it's too pale, maybe you should take a beer or something else. So it's really the pretty of this is it's subliminal. We don't think about it. When we meet outside, when you had coffee this morning, you started to talk with friends and you judged their health, their interest in you, whether they like you, whether they hate you, they want to go away from you, just by looking at their face. And we all know that this is the way it works. So going back to EN 12464 of lighting standards, we need to be better at giving good color rendering because it's so important for us when we communicate with people that we really see the slightest color change. That's why my best advice to people is if you want to have a serious discussion with your wife, take her outside and take a walk along the beach and then just go there, chat with each other and look at each other because outside nothing beats the color rendering of daylight. So if you really want to judge critical issues, make sure that they are backlit so they are alive, and then judge the color to see if they believe in you or if they rely on you, if they love you, or if they just want to get rid of you. So if you're looking like that, the interest is awake. If you're looking like that, you're covering it up. So the reason why some of these American football players put these black lines underneath is that you cannot see whether I love you or whether I'm afraid of you. Because if you imagine they are standing like this, starting the game, looking in the eyes of the opponent, would be a little sad if they signaled, I love you, Wouldn't be very American football-like. So, and it would also be a problem if they showed, I'm afraid of you. And that goes all the way back to Native Americans and war paint, because if you paint yourself like an Indian or like the commando soldiers do today, you cannot see if your pal is afraid. So if you want to go in and storm that hostage situation or carry out anything or fight the cowboys, you would like to know that everyone is on your side and your friends are not afraid to do this together with you. And that's why you cover up so you don't see the feelings. And the same happens if you engage an opponent. They get a little bit scared because they can't read you when you have this kind of war paint. And sometimes, guys, we can't read the girls if they use too heavy makeup, right? We know it. And just to end this part of the lecture in the same way we started it, if you put on a Native African mask, you're no longer a person. If the medicine man puts this on, he becomes a messenger from the gods because you lose all the human touch. You lose the translucency of the ears. You lose the color of the skin. He's just sort of like an object, pretty much like the very first animated characters in the computer movies I showed you in the beginning. So this wraps up that we need light from all directions, we need excellent color rendering, and most of all, we need people who think about it. Because if you just make 200 lux or 300 lux on the desk, we haven't exactly covered these subjects. the last part of what I'm going to share with you is like